Next up, we've got editorial board member Steve Moore. He's going to break down the budget plan proposed by Ohio Republican Steve LaTourette and Tennessee Democrat Jim Cooper. Steve, welcome.
Hi, Mary.
So, Steve, we've got a huge budget problem in this nation. I know it's not new news, but it's worth repeating the numbers. $1.2 trillion. It's the fourth straight year in a row that we've had a more than $1 trillion deficit. How much are these two gentlemen proposing to cut, and over what period of time?
Well, the proposal by LaTourette and Mr. Cooper is to cut the deficit by some $4 trillion over the next 10 years. Now, that's over a period when the debt is supposed to rise by $8 to $10 trillion. It's really modeled after something called the Simpson-Bowles bipartisan commission that was appointed by President Obama, and President Obama, as soon as they came out with the recommendations, dropped the ball on it, and it's just been sitting there. It's, you know, there are some good things about that proposal, Mary, some that I'm not so happy with. One of the major ways that it reduces the deficit is by about a $1 to $2 trillion tax increase over the next 10 years. This is probably one reason it's not going to pass the House, is not very many Republicans will vote for a tax hike that big.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, Steve. I was going to ask you about Simpson-Bowles. You answered that question. It's pretty similar. So let's talk about what this means for Paul Ryan. I thought that he came out with a budget. So why are Republicans, why do they have two plans?
Well, Paul Ryan's budget, I believe, will pass the House, and I think it will then be sent to the graveyard, which is the United States Senate, where it'll languish and die. But I do think that the one budget that's going to pass out of the House is going to be Paul Ryan's budget. It's going to be a narrow vote. I don't expect many, if any, Democrats to vote for it. But you know, this bipartisan budget that was put out yesterday, it's an interesting idea. I don't have a good feel for how many votes it will get. A lot of Democrats say they won't vote for it, Mary, because it cuts entitlements, and a lot of Republicans say they won't vote for it because it raises taxes. So I don't think it's going to get anywhere near a majority. Well,
Steve, one thing is clear. If House Republicans are coming out with not just one, but two budget proposals, there's clearly an impetus there for reform and change. Yes. I noticed today, I think BlackRock's Larry Fink and others in the business community have been, I think, pushing Republicans to do something. Am I remembering this correctly? Are there other forces here pushing them to act?
Well, there are. I mean, look, everybody wants to bring this enormous deficit down. The debt has increased by $5 trillion under Obama's 4 years in office. So it's been an incredibly fiscally reckless 4 years. You know, look, I think you got to grow the economy to get more tax revenues in, and then you've got to do what Paul Ryan is suggesting, take on these big boulders of the budget like Medicare and Medicaid that are really the drivers of the future debt. So I think Paul Ryan's budget is remarkable. It's a heroic document, quite frankly, and I think that it's nice to see that you're going to get Republicans getting this through the House. The really sad part of the story, Mary, is that in the Senate, the Harry Reid's proposal is just to do nothing, and he has not proposed a budget now for over 1,000 days.
Well,
I think
officially
right
it's about Steve,
1,050 days.
I'm gonna save the Senate budget just for a second. I want to just stick here on the LaTourette and Cooper plan. What does it say to you about House leadership, about Boehner and Cantor, that they can't seem to control their members enough to get everybody behind the Paul Ryan plan, if indeed it is, as you say, that Paul Ryan's plan is the better proposal?
Well, there are a few Republicans in the House who don't think that it goes far enough in cutting spending and in bringing the debt down, and they want something that has a sharper budget blade. There is a Republican Study Committee budget that came out a couple of days ago, Mary, that cuts substantially faster. I think it aims to balance the budget in like 5 to 8 years. That's a pretty heavy lift, given that we've got $1.2 trillion in debt right now. But, you know, there are a lot of these kind of Tea Party freshmen who want to be much more aggressive than even Paul Ryan is in cutting the debt. I believe, Mary, that they will end up voting for both budgets. They'll vote for the Republican Study Committee budget that balances in 5 to 8 years, but then I think they'll also turn around and vote for the Paul Ryan budget, and that's the one that's going to win the majority in the House.